Don Callis, where do we start? You're the most controversial individual in all of pro wrestling. There's no doubt about that. And I've been around almost 50 years. I've seen it all, done it all. But I didn't see anything like what you did to your former friend Kenny Omega. And I need to understand, how far does this relationship actually go back? When did it start? Conversing, talking, mentoring, or whatever it may be.
Well, it's a long history. Kenny Omega's uncle, the Golden Sheik, who was an independent wrestler in Canada of some renown. Kenny Omega's uncle trained me to be a pro wrestler in 1989. And when I had my first match, JR, the Golden Sheik, Kenny's uncle, was my manager. And he mentored me and took care of me on the road. And I knew from that day that the Sheik would always want me to pass that along. And a few years later, when he introduced me to a 10-year-old Kenny Omega, his nephew.
10 years old.
10 years old, the son of the Sheik's sister. He said, my nephew loves wrestling. Can he hang around? So Kenny would hang around. By the time Kenny was 16 and I had watched him play hockey and do mixed martial arts training, I recognized this guy's a special athlete. But all the kid wanted to do was wrestle. So the Sheik asked me to look after Kenny the same way he looked after me. And I've been doing that up until very recently, my entire adult life that I've known Kenny Omega. It was a deep family relationship.
Sounds like it.
Christmas dinners, Easter, birthdays, the whole deal, family vacations. Kenny has destroyed that family that I've known for a long time.
Well, you contributed to that destruction, Don. I mean, Kenny didn't hit himself with a screwdriver in the head. That was you. That was you doing that. And my question, I'm still puzzled. Could he not just have sat down and talked it out? If you ever having issues, do what friends do.
You're an eminently practical man. It's what I've always appreciated about you, but it's an oversimplification. You have a family relationship that goes back 25 years. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of water under the bridge. You don't think I tried? You don't think I tried to talk sense? As recently, in fact, as January, when Kenny beat Will Ospreay, which was the last time to me that I saw the real Kenny Omega, I tried. Eventually, nothing works. And this is why, JR, I never had children of my own. Because I knew in my heart that if I mixed my superior genetics with someone else, that superior DNA would get diluted. And that someday the day would come, as it does for all parents, where you look at your child and you say, you're a colossal disappointment to me, and I'm disgusted by you. And then you have no choice but to take action, because inaction means more of the same. So I tried everything. Kenny Omega chose his friends over his family.
Who specifically are you talking about, Don? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Who are you specifically talking about as far as his friends? Who are his friends?
Well, I think it's very simple. It's the Young Bucks. Apparently now it's Hangman Page. And look, I never wanted the association with the Young Bucks. I have nothing against those kids. We all know they're nice kids. The problem is that they drag Kenny down. The problem is you have one guy who is Albert Einstein, and you have another couple of guys who just want to have fun. The Bucks like to have fun. So I brought them into the elite when I came here because I thought, well, Kenny can't work all the time. He needs something that makes him happy other than me. So, okay. The problem is the Bucks are like wood ticks. They attach themselves, and it's like an infection, and all of a sudden, Kenny wants to do trios matches. I had a vision for Kenny Omega and myself, JR, that would be a modern-day Heenan Bockwinkel.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good goal. Good goal, Don.
Kenny chose to be one of the Three Stooges with the Young Bucks. I hate to say it. And I think those kids are great. They're a generational tag team, but they're not Kenny Omega. Dealing with Kenny, and I love Kenny. I truly do.
Still today?
Of course. I will speak at Kenny's funeral as I did at his uncle's funeral.
You're prophesizing that Kenny's going to live shorter than you? Come on, Don.
Well, those are your words.
Okay.
I love Kenny.
Good.
But what I did took real courage. Can you imagine how hard it is to do that to someone who people say I'm like his uncle? I'm not Kenny's uncle, I'm Kenny's dad. I'm Kenny's daddy. I'm the father figure that he needed his whole life. And I've been there through all of it, JR. I mean, people say, oh, Kenny got you into New Japan. No, Kenny asked me to come to New Japan to help him as I had his entire teenage and adult life.
And that worked out well.
Worked out well. We beat Okada. Then Kenny said, you know, I really feel like I'm not known internationally as much as I'd like to be. So I came up with what? The most important match, potentially, of this century. Jericho Omega at the Tokyo Dome comes from me. I put the match together. I leveraged a 30-year friendship with Chris Jericho for Kenny's benefit, so Kenny could have a big name internationally, which he did. Kenny goes to AEW. After about a year, we're having our weekly call. Kenny's not happy. People are saying, I've lost a step. I'm not the real Kenny Omega. Could you come for a few weeks and help me? As I had always. People call me the invisible hand. I've been the invisible hand of Kenny's life since he was 10 years old. So, very good. I come to AEW, and the first night, you were there, Jim Ross, you called it. And the first night that I'm in AEW, Kenny and I win the AEW World title.
Sure did.
We picked up a couple other ones along the way, too. It's been a very successful, like a Brady-Belichick relationship.
That's a good comparison. I think that's a fair comparison, Don. But it still doesn't justify stabbing a man in the head with a screwdriver.
Sometimes, Jim, toxic relationships require extreme measures.
Well, that's extreme, buddy.
If I had slapped Kenny in the face, he would have still come back to me and tried to leech off my intellect and to trigger me with emotional words and things. I had to do something for his own good and for the good of what's left of our family, Jim Ross. I had to do something, as you say, stab him in the face. I had to do something there could be no coming back from. That's the reality, and it's upset a lot of people. But again, Kenny Omega has destroyed the only family I've known for a long time. His mother won't say it, but his mother, Marla, is disgusted with him.
Wow.
His mother, Marla, knows that her brother, the Sheik, is rolling over in his grave right now at what Kenny's doing. That's the simple reality. And JR, you know, I know you read Machiavelli like I have since I was a young boy, and they say in Machiavelli, it's better to be feared than loved. And in this case, this is the situation I'm in right now, as you say. I'm the most detested this and whatever. People are not happy with me. But you know what? Think about the fear, Jim Ross, in Kenny Omega and in the Young Bucks that, guys, you never saw this coming. Should have. That's why you always needed me, because I told you what was coming down the line. Not one step, not 2 steps, 10 steps ahead of everyone else. And you got a little picture of it the other night.
Sure did. I just feel terrible that your family element has been so adversely affected. I think that's bad for anybody.
I've been victimized, Jim Ross.
Oh, you've been victimized.
Yes, I'm the real victim here. Kenny still has his friends. My family's gone. I'm the bad guy here because people don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Having Kenny Omega as like my son, as you had said, is like, imagine if you have a child and it has the intellect of an Albert Einstein, but he chooses to work at a convenience store. That's what Kenny's doing with his talent every minute he spends with the Young Bucks. Every minute that they're infecting his head with their blather, the stuff that doesn't matter. Kenny Omega was a god of professional wrestling. I named him that. But what we're going to find out, I think, as things roll forward, is that that god is very fallible. And if there was a god in our tandem, we're going to find out that it wasn't Kenny, that maybe it was me all along.
So now, as we start wrapping this thing up, it's been very eye-opening. You're saying that Kenny is totally at fault for this breakup, this marriage, this implosion of family emotions. It's Kenny's fault. Do you take any blame for this?
Yes, I do.
Well, that's honorable.
I take blame, JR, for the fact that I actually allowed my love for Kenny to make me and to let me believe that he could be mentally strong and that he could be great. One thing is for sure, and I said this to Kenny before, and I guess he didn't hear it. You cannot be both great and weak. Kenny's codependent relationship with the Bucks and his friends has made him weak. So I deeply, deeply regret and am sorry for the fact that I trusted Kenny and put faith that Kenny could be the kind of man that his uncle and I always wanted him to be. And I'm very deeply sorry for the fact that he has exposed himself to being an immensely talented but emotionally weak person. And I cannot stand weakness. I can never tolerate it, JR.
We've covered a lot of bases today. A lot of very volatile topics, a lot of very emotional topics.
Yes.
But I think that I owe it to the fans to ask you this question. Mm-hmm. How do you see, or maybe more specifically, how do you want this whole saga to conclude?
It's not about what I want, JR. It's about what's going to happen. I've been very good, as you know, of predicting the future. Short term, anarchy in the arena of the Blackpool Combat Club is going to tear the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Hangman Page limb from limb. The Elite have gone into a match that they're not well suited for. This isn't an athletic competition. This is a competition of brutality. So that's the short term. Long term, I think what's going to happen, Jim Ross, much to the chagrin of Kenny and his mom and dad and the whole family, and the Bucks, and Hangman Page, is that it's going to be proven a few months from now that I was responsible for everything that Kenny Omega ever accomplished, and that without me, Kenny Omega will be exposed as just a clown who wants to hang out with his friends and have a good time. They'll always make money in wrestling, but they'll never be great without me. And I have done the hardest thing that a parent, that a family member can do. Because you see, my son, if you want to call him that, Kenny Omega, it was like a cancer eating away at me, JR. And what do you do with cancer, Jim Ross? You cut it out. And Kenny, I haven't even started cutting